into comprehension. Our objectives would be to develop an understanding of reading comprehension, examine 3 strategies that help with reading comprehension, and learn the factors affecting reading comprehension. So what is comprehension? Comprehension is the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning through interaction and involvement with written language. Comprehension involves constructing meaning that is reasonable and accurate by connecting what has been read to what the reader already knows and thinking about how all this information until it's understood. Reading comprehension can be quite difficult because many skills and strategies are needed to be proficient in reading. Among them are decoding, vocabulary, prior knowledge, predicting, monitoring, visualizing, summarizing questions, and clarifying. Comprehension is the final goal of reading instruction. These are the essential skills required for reading comprehension. It requires considerable mental work from the reader and can be challenging for students. They must master a number of key skills like decoding to fully understand what they're reading. Together, these skills lead to reading comprehension or understanding what's been read. There are 5 essential skills needed for reading comprehension. Decoding skills taught during phonemic awareness and phonics instruction, fluency, vocabulary, background knowledge, and knowledge of comprehension strategies. Knowing the skills involved and which ones specific students struggle with can help a teacher provide the right supports to help a student achieve comprehension. The Office of Educational Research and Improvement, now the Institute of Education Sciences of the United States Department of Education, charged the RAND Reading Study Group with developing a research agenda to address the most pressing issues in literacy in 1999. The decision to focus this research agenda proposal on reading comprehension in particular was motivated by the factors on this slide. First, all high school graduates are facing an increased need for a high degree of literacy, but reading comprehension outcomes are not improving. Students in the United States were performing increasingly poorly in comparison with students in other countries as they enter the later years of schooling. Unacceptable gaps in reading performance persisted between children in different demographic groups. Little direct attention had been devoted to helping teachers develop the skills they need to promote reading comprehension, ensure content learning through reading, and deal with the differences in comprehension skills that their students displayed. And finally, many current programs that are intended to improve reading comprehension are neither based on empirical evidence nor adequately evaluated. The research found that good instruction is the most powerful means of promoting the development of proficient comprehenders and preventing reading comprehension problems. A good teacher makes use of instructional practices that uses his or her knowledge about the complex and fluid interrelationships among readers, texts, purposeful activities, and context to advance students' thoughtful, competent, and motivated reading. The RAND panel later published a practice guide called Improving Reading Comprehension in Kindergarten through 3rd grade. This practice guide outlines 5 specific recommendations for teaching reading comprehension with young children. The recommendations are teach students how to use reading comprehension strategies, teach students to identify and use the text organizational structure to comprehend, learn, and remember content, guide students through focused, high-quality discussion of the meaning of text, select text purposefully to support comprehension development, and establish an engaging and motivating context in which to teach reading comprehension. These 5 recommendations promote practices that have shown promise in increasing reading comprehension among students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. We will focus on recommendation 1, which is explicit teaching of comprehension stages, which showed the most promise for impacting comprehension. Comprehension strategies represent many different ways of thinking about what has been read. They can be thought of as thinking strategies. They are ways of thinking about what has been read that help readers go beyond understanding the surface meaning of the text. The National Reading Panel findings identified the following comprehension strategies as most promising and effective for helping students improve their comprehension. They include comprehension monitoring, cooperative learning, graphic and semantic organizers, story or text structure and mapping, questioning, summarization, and multiple strategy approach. These strategies provide the foundation for comprehension instruction. According to the NRP, teaching a combination of these techniques can have a positive impact on student achievement. A key component to these strategies is explicit teaching, which has been shown to be highly effective in enhancing understanding. Research in reading shows that comprehension can be improved by explicitly or formally teaching students to use specific cognitive strategies when they encounter barriers to understanding what they are reading. An in-depth explanation of some of these strategies and examples of the applications will be the focus later in the presentation. Effective comprehension strategy instruction is explicit. The teacher introduces a strategy to be taught, explains to students why and when they should use the specific strategy being taught, and how to apply it when reading. The teacher then follows the steps for explicit instruction, which typically include teacher modeling, guided practice, and application. That should sound familiar from your small groups. The teacher scaffolds, thinks aloud, and models as she reads a text. And finally, the teacher provides opportunities for students to use the strategy throughout the school day and in combination with other strategies. Effective comprehension strategy instruction can also be accomplished through cooperative and collaborative learning. Let's take a second to review this explicit comprehension strategy instruction in action. Pay attention to the questions on the right as you watch the video.
One of the strategies that helps us to understand what we're reading is asking questions. So as we read, we wonder about things, and we start questioning before we've even started reading a book. So today we're going to look at a book at the beginning, before we start reading it. We're going to look at that same story as we read or during our reading, and then we're going to look at the book at the end. And we're going to ask I wonder questions all the way through. You have a clipboard and 3 different sticky notes. So before we start reading, we're going to use our blue sticky note. During our story, we're going to use our green sticky note. And after we're finished reading our story, we're going to use the large yellow sticky note. While you look at the cover of the book, you're going to immediately have questions in your head that you wonder about. Use your blue sticky note to write down whatever you're wondering. Take a look at the pictures, but also take a look at the title or any words that you see. Turn to the person beside you and share your question.
I wonder why his name is Super Honest. I wonder why he's
We're going to put our blue sticky note with our before reading questions on our questioning chart. Now that we have our before reading questions up on our chart, let's hear some of them. I wonder if he is nice or evil. So as we're reading, you're going to use the green sticky note and you're going to write down your during reading question. What are you wondering about as we go along? You might find that as we go along, your question might get answered. And that's okay. Superpotamus. Up they pop. Remember that during the story, if you come up with a question or something that you're not so sure about, don't wait. As soon as it pops into your head, put it on paper. Come dusk, he's dozing on his bed. Raise your hand if you have got a question already written on your during sticky note. If you have a question on your sticky note for during, please come put it up for during. Let's find out what you're wondering during the story so far. I wonder if he's saving the monkey. This river must be saved from us. We need a superpotamus. Your yellow sticky note is the sticky note for your after question. Why did that happen? What are you wondering? And did any of your questions maybe get answered? If you've got an after question, let's put our after questions up on our last column. Let's find out if any of our during questions were answered during the story. What is he going to do? Ben?
Save them?
He was going to save them. So, yes, we did get an answer. Who's the bad guy? Do we know, Rosmera?
We don't.
We don't know who's the bad guy. So let's see what you're still wondering as the story has ended, and if it's really important to our understanding of the story to get an answer. I wonder if he will get in trouble again. Do we know the answer to that?
No.
No. Does it matter to the story, to our understanding of the text? Not really. So if we don't have an answer, it's not going to really help us understand the text better. Let's see. Why was there a flood in the river, and why was the water polluted? Do we know why the water was polluted? Who was responsible for that pollution? Ryan?
The people. That's why the superpotamus said no littering.
Okay, so we do have an answer to why the water was polluted and why there was a flood. And that helped us to understand the story, because now I know what the purpose of superpotamus is. It's to help with pollution. So sometimes when we ask questions while we're reading, we still have questions at the end of a text that we don't get answers to. But sometimes it doesn't matter to how we understand the story. So if we don't know why Superpotamus's cape was red, it doesn't really matter to the story. But we do have answers to questions that help us to understand more what the purpose of the character was. And that's why asking questions after reading will help us to understand what the story was about in the first place.
All right, so based on that video, take a second to reflect on these questions. For children in preschool through second grade, comprehension strategies should be presented in very simple terms. For example, story maps are a fairly complex way to represent story structure graphically. Students who are not yet old enough to create story maps may draw a picture that translates what they remember and understand from the story into graphic form. By simplifying comprehension strategies, teachers can begin to build younger students' thinking skills. Children in preschool and kindergarten begin to develop their comprehension skills through experiences that promote oral and written language. For example, teachers reading and rereading a wide variety of texts and encouraging discussions and questions before, during, and after reading, or using the text to make connections or to prior knowledge, or encouraging children to draw a picture of what they remember or understand from the story, and providing an oral explanation can all help children build a model of meaning and contribute to both fluency and comprehension. Two popular comprehension strategies that can be used with younger children are prior knowledge or background knowledge in answering questions. Both strategies have been proven to be effective in improving students' comprehension of text. Generating and asking questions help students engage with text in a more active and meaningful way. Regardless of the type of question, they play a role in helping students to clarify and comprehend what they are reading. Questions can and should be asked before, during, and after reading. Asking the right questions is essential, not only to comprehension, but to focusing on the most essential elements of a text as well. Overall, a student's ability to ask and answer questions can help point to strengths and weaknesses in their comprehension. For younger readers who are not yet reading independently, the teachers should read aloud and ask students periodically about what's happening, what the story is about, or what they think is going to happen. Teachers should facilitate a discussion by using a variety of higher-level questions that prompt the students to interpret the text. When preparing questions, teachers should think about the following: the best time to present each question to students before, during, or after reading, which questions should be asked when students first read the text, and which questions should be asked after a second or a subsequent reading. In a similar vein, teachers should determine exactly where in the text a question will be asked. For students in kindergarten and first grade, shared reading time or read-alouds provide an opportunity to introduce higher-order questions that invite discussion. Experience and prior knowledge are some of the best learning tools we have. Background knowledge refers to a person's experiences with the world, including historical knowledge, personal experience, vocabulary, text structure, literary genres, and more. that prior knowledge plays a critical role in one's ability to comprehend a text. In reading comprehension, activating prior knowledge can help students make more sense of what they're reading. For example, facilitating a discussion around the class visit to the farm, the activities they experienced, and the things they saw before reading Winter on the Farm can activate prior knowledge and help increase students' understanding of the text. Some commonly used tools that helps with activating prior knowledge are graphic organizers, concept maps, and KWL charts. Prior knowledge should be discussed before reading the text to help set the stage for what is coming. Story mapping is a strategy that uses graphic organizers to help students examine the different elements of a text or story. This technique uses visual representations to help students organize the essential elements of a story. Students learn to identify the main ideas, characters, setting, and plot of an assigned reading, which can help with monitoring and summarizing. Story maps may be used with the entire class, in small groups, or for individual work. Students can use story maps with fiction and nonfiction. Story maps as a comprehension strategy can be beneficial for all students and especially helpful for students needing the additional support of a graphic organizer. Teaching readers to draw visual displays or organizing ideas found in their reading helps them remember what they read and can produce stronger comprehension.
We've been working on story elements. So today, when you are at your seat reading independently, here's what I want you to work on. You are going to work on identifying characters, setting, problem, and solution in a book that you like to read. I want you to talk about what characters, setting, problem, and solution are first. Characters are the people, animals, or things that are in the story. Setting is where and when the story takes place. The problem is something that causes trouble for the characters. And the solution is how the problem in the story is solved. So, I read this book called A Chair for My Mother. This is one of my favorite books, and I've read it lots, so I'm very familiar with it. So what I did was I took my supplies and I started writing what the characters are. So in my story, I know that there's a little girl, there's an aunt, the mother, the uncle, a woman named Josephine, and the grandma. The next thing that I'm going to do is think about the setting. Where does this story take place? This story takes place in the diner.
As you can see, story mapping is a really helpful way for students to really understand what they read and increase their comprehension.
Hey, second.
There are 3 main levels of reading comprehension. These levels align with the types of questions being asked and how much thinking is required from children to gain meaning from the text. The levels are literal, inferential, and evaluative, depending on what you have to do to answer a question. Children should be exposed to comprehension at all 3 levels. Take a moment to review the levels and corresponding questions on the following slide. As you can see, the levels of comprehension for literal require students to identify and recall facts mentioned explicitly in the text. Level of comprehension questions, answer these questions are found directly in the text. Sample questions for this might be like, what's the boy's name? Or what was the weather like? Inferential questions require you to look for implied or suggested meaning in the text. The text does not answer these questions directly, so students have to figure it out. For example, why doesn't Peter join in the snowball fight? Why do you think Peter dreamed about the snow melting? It was because his pocket was wet. What do you think the big kids would have done if Peter joined in the snowball fight? Finally, the levels of comprehension for evaluative take place when you evaluate, give judgment or opinions on ideas in the text using your prior knowledge or background experiences. These questions ask students to evaluate and analyze information obtained from the text, making interpretation on the meaning of the text and evaluating the information. For example, you might say, what are some ways you're like Peter? Our children might recognize that they are also young children. What's your opinion about the story? What's your opinion about Peter? How do you feel about snowy days? Reading comprehension can be challenging for lots of reasons. Whatever the cause, when a teacher knows the strategies, skills, and levels involved and which ones specific students need or struggle with, They can help to improve comprehension by providing the proper support. Please take a few moments at the end of the presentation to review these resources and, as always, these references if you have additional questions or would like to dive in deeper.